You wake up in the dark. Not just the kind of dark where you can still see the faint glow of a phone screen. No, this is true darkness, pitch black, cold, silent, except for the sound of your own breath and someone snoring nearby. You sit up, straw crackles under you. It itches, it smells faintly of damp earth, and something worse. You slept on a sack stuffed with old hay. It wasn't soft, but you were tired. And this is what people sleep on here. You're in the Middle Ages, medieval times, somewhere between the year 500 and 1500. Exactly where, it doesn't matter. It all feels the same, cold, muddy, and strangely quiet. You're in a village, small, a few huts maybe. A dozen families, wood and wattle homes with thatched roofs. No glass in the windows, just cloth, maybe a wooden shutter. That is, if your Lord allowed you the extra timber. You swing your feet to the floor. It's dirt, packed, cold earth. Your feet are bare. You can't remember the last time you wore shoes. If you had any, they were rough leather. They don't help much in winter. Outside, it's still dark, but the village is waking. Roosters, footsteps, a low voice, someone stirring, ashes in a hearth. You don't have much, a tunic, a belt, some kind of cloak, rough and scratchy. Nothing fits right, nothing feels clean, because it isn't. Baths are rare, water is precious, soap is expensive, and winter doesn't invite you to undress. The air smells like wood smoke, old stew, and animals. Always animals, pigs in the yard, chickens wandering underfoot. You keep them close, they're valuable, but they don't exactly smell like roses. You're hungry, but there's no breakfast. Not really. There's bread, hard, dense, from yesterday or last week. You dunk it in water, or beer, or whatever is warm. You might have porridge thin, salty, boiled with water and roots. No sugar, no cream, just heat. You eat quickly, because work is waiting. Work always waits. You're a peasant, a villager, a laborer. You don't choose your job. You do what your father did, and his father, and his father, before him. You work the land, plow it, plant it, harvest it, all with tools made of wood and iron, passed down or borrowed. You owe taxes to the Lord. You owe grain to the church. You owe time to everyone but yourself. Sometimes you build walls, or dig ditches, or carry stones, because someone in power wants a new hall, or a road, or a chapel. Your hands are cracked. Your back aches. You're 25, but you feel much older. There are castles, knights, kings, queens. They exist, but they are not here. They are distant, up on the hill, behind thick stone walls, in rooms with fire and blankets and meat. You don't see them. You serve them. They fight wars. You fight weeds. They wear armor. You wear wool. They live long. If they are lucky, you live long. If the weather is kind and the food lasts. And you don't get sick, but you will get sick. There are no hospitals, no doctors, not really. There are herbs and prayers and hope. A fever could be the end. A cut could become poison. A cough could last all winter. Children die. Often, so often, that names are sometimes reused, and yet life continues. You laugh sometimes. Not often. There are festivals, feast days, church bells. You sing, dance, drink. Ale that tastes like smoke. Eat stew that's mostly onions. You gather with others around the fire. You hear stories of saints, of wolves, of knights who slay dragons, of places you'll never see. You don't know how to read dot, no. One you know does, except maybe the priest. Maybe you can count dot, sort of dot, enough to know when someone cheats you. You believe in God. Everyone does. You fear hell. You hope for heaven. You confess your sins, even the small ones. The church is the center of everything. It watches you, guides you, punishes you, blesses your crops, then takes part of them. You've heard of cities, London asterisk, Paris, Constantinople, but they are far away and crowded and loud and full of rats, so you stay here, with your mud and your bread and your quiet. Sometimes a knight rides by, armor shining, horse tall and clean. He does not look at you. You bow anyway. Sometimes a peddler comes, with buttons, salt, cloth, dyed in colors you cannot name. You stare, you touch, you wish, then you return to work. There are no clocks, just the sun, and the church bell, and the seasons. You don't have a calendar, but you know what month it is the way the wind smells by the state of the crops, by the hunger in your belly. You don't have a mirror. You know your face from the reflection in the water, and from what others say. You don't have a toilet. You squat in the woods, or over a hole, and you hope it doesn't rain. There is no heat, no light switch, no roof that doesn't leak. And yet, you endure, because this is life, all you've ever known, all your parents knew, all their parents knew. This is the Middle Ages, the medieval times, not full of magic, but mud, not chivalry, but chores, not glory, but grit. It is not a fairy tale. It is survival. You wake up coughing at first. It's small, just a tickle in your throat. You brush it off, cold air too. Much smoke from the fire last night, maybe something in the straw you slept on. But it doesn't go away. Your nose runs. Your head feels heavy. Your skin is warm. You have a fever today. This might mean tea, a blanket, a day off work. But here, in the Middle Ages, this is different. This is dangerous. You still get up. You have to. There's no such thing as staying in bed. Not for a peasant. Not for anyone without wealth or title. The animals need feeding. The fields need tending. You owe labor to the local. Lord, no one waits. No one cares that you're coughing. Your head pounds, but you keep walking because stopping means trouble, and trouble means punishment or being replaced. You think it's just a cold. You hope it's just a cold. But you also know a cold can become worse, so much worse. There are no thermometers, no medicine, no doctors as you know them. There are healers, herbalists, wise women who know what to do with roots and steam. But they aren't always trusted. And if they help to many people, they might be called witches. There are priests. They can bless you, pray for you, tell you your illness is caused by sin, or by demons, or by God's will, but they cannot stop it. There are barbers, yes, barbers, they cut hair, and also cut flesh, let your blood out to balance the humors. Because in this time, people believe the body is ruled by IV fluids, blood, phlegm, black bile, yellow bile, too much of one end, you get sick. So they bleed you, cut you, drain you, and hope you survive. You might drink tea, made of herbs, mint, yarrow, nettle. You might wrap a toad in cloth and place it on your chest. You might hang garlic by your bed. You might be told to fast, to pray harder, to confess, because illness, they say, could be punishment. You're told that your soul must be cleansed for your body to heal. Meanwhile, the fever climbs. If you're lucky, your body fights it off. You sweat, you sleep, you wake a little better. But often the sickness spreads. Asterisk, that cough becomes deep. Your chest rattles. You struggle to breathe. And now you're not just uncomfortable, you're in danger. It doesn't take much. A small cut from a farming tool, a scratch that gets dirty, an insect bite, any break in the skin can turn. Red dot, swollen dot, hot dot, then deadly dot. There are no antibiotics, no antiseptic, no understanding of germs. No one knows what infection is, dot, or how it works. They think illness comes from bad air, from smells, from swamps, from stars out of alignment. They don't know the true danger lives on their hands, their tools, their food, so you suffer. You lay down in the corner of your home. No hospital, no clinic, just dirt and straw, and whatever blanket you own. Your family watches, helpless, worried, but not surprised, because everyone has seen it before. Children with fevers who don't wake up, mothers who never recover from childbirth, men who get blisters that turn black dot wounds that smell before the person dies. You've seen it, and now it might be your turn. If you live in the city, things are worse. People live close, too close. Houses stacked on each other, no. Toilets, no clean water. Rats, everywhere. Sickness spreads fast. One cough becomes 10. One death becomes dozens. And when real plague comes, nothing helps. The Black Death. You've heard whispers of it, maybe. You've seen it. Boils, fever, vomiting, madness. It kills quickly, and it terrifies everyone. No. One wants to touch the sick families, leave the dying behind. Priests refuse to enter homes. Doctors wear strange masks stuffed with herbstow, protect themselves from the air. But it doesn't work. Whole villages vanish. You've heard of it. Maybe it will come here. Maybe it already has. But even small illnesses are bad enough. There is no help, not really. There are no painkillers, no IVs, no clean sheets, no clean sheets, no one washing their hands. Only hope and maybe prayer. And if you die, you are buried quickly. Sometimes the priest comes, sometimes he doesn't. The ground is cold, the hole is shallow. There is no stone, just a body and the memory of one more personican. Too soon be something no one can see. You wonder what could have saved you. Clean water, soap, a shot in the arm, a pill, but none of that exists, not yet. So you live carefully. Avoid scratches, avoid cold rain, avoid people who cough, and still it may not be enough, because in the Middle Ages, getting sick is not a small thing. It is a risk, a danger, a Teninsky. You could survive. You could also deframe something modern people would call minor. But there is nothing minor here. There is only the strength of your body, and the chance it will last another day. You've woken up sick before, tired, fevered, hungry, but hunger never really leaves, not here, not in the middle. Ages, you feel it in your belly each morning. Before you stand, before you speak, you feel it like a second skin, a dull ache, a tight pull, a silence inside. Your body that never quite fades. You want food, of course you do, but this isn't a world of kitchens, menus, or snacks. No fruit bowls, no shelves of dry cereal, no packed lunches, no corner stores. There is no fast food, there is no slow food. There is only what's available, and what's available isn't much. You eat to survive, not to enjoy. The day begins with bread. It's not soft, it's not warm, it's not sliced. It's heavy, dense, baked, with coarsely ground grain. Sometimes it's rye, sometimes barley, sometimes oats, never wheat. That's too expensive. It's dark, bread, rough on your teeth, hard on your stomach. You soak it in ale or thin broth just. To chew it, you eat it slowly, not because you savor it, but because you have to make it last. Sometimes, if you're lucky, there's pottage, a thick soup, boiled in a single pot over a smoky fire. It's made of whatever you had the day before. Grains, peas, cabbage, onions, a carrot. If it's in season, a turnip. If it's not, there's no spice, just salt, when you can get it, or a few bitter herbs from the garden. You eat it with your hands or with a wooden spoon, from a shared bowl, no plates, no forks. And if someone is sick, you eat anyway, because there's nothing else, and you're too hungry to be careful. There's no meat, not unless it's a feast day, not unless you trap something in the woods, not unless you've stolen a chicken and risked the punishment. The Lord eats meat, often pork, beef, goose, spiced, salted, roasted over fires. You can smell it from your field sometimes, but you don't taste it once a year. Maybe you have salted bacon, a scrap of it, chopped into stew, boiled until it vanishes. You pretend to taste it, but mostly you taste the salt, sometimes fish, but only if you're near a river and know how to catch it, or if it's Lenten, the church demands no meat. Then you get dried herring, hard, salty, a little sour. You chew slowly, not because it's good, but because it's rare. There's no sugar, only honey, and that's precious. Fruit is for summer, berries, sometimes apples. If they haven't spoiled, there are no bananas, no oranges, no chocolate, no tomatoes, no potatoes. Those haven't arrived yet. There is no refrigeration, no coolers, no isopode. If something isn't eaten fast, it spoils, milk turns sour quickly, meat rots, grain gets moldy. Water goes green, and you eat it anyway, because there's nothing else. You get used to sour milk, to bitter broth, to ale that tastes like smoke and dirt. You drink ale because water is dangerous. Clean water isn't easy to find. The river is full of waste, so is the well, so are the streets. You can't see the danger in the cup, but your stomach feels it. You drink carefully, but you still get sick. You boil when you can. You strain when you remember, but even then, disease finds its way in. Food is shared always, between families, between neighbors, sometimes even with strangers, because hunger is common and no one survives alone. If your crops fail, you starve. If it rains too much, you starve. If it doesn't rain at all, you starve. You store what you can, in cellars, in jars, in old sacks, tied with rope, but rats find it, mold finds it. Winter comes fast, and suddenly you're counting root sand, praying for spring. There are feast days, yes, religious days, weddings, harvests, Then the bread is fresh, the stew is thick, there's dancing, singing, maybe even a roast, but they pass quickly, and hunger returns. You know it well. You've seen it take people, children, who fade, old men who fall asleep and do not wake. It's not dramatic, it's quiet, slow, the kind of hunger that lives in the bones. You work with it, sleep with it, wake with it. You learn to chew slowly. You learn to lie to your stomach. You learn to be grateful for scraps. There are no restaurants, no markets full of choice, just a small table, a hot pot, and whatever you manage to grow, catch, or save. You dream of other food, sweet things, soft things, plates with color, smells that make your mouth water. But those dreams belong to a different time. Here, food is not pleasure, it is survival, and even that is not guaranteed. You think you've adjusted to the bread, to the chill in your bones, to the hunger that curls quietly behind your ribs. But today, as you step outside into the village lane, you're reminded you haven't adjusted to everything. The smell hits you, thick, heavy, wraps around you like damp cloth. It lives in the air. It crawls into your nose and refuses to leave. This is life in the middle. Ages, and it smells terrible. It's not just one thing, it's everything, all at once. Start with yourself. You haven't bathed in front-end. You don't even know how long. No one really does. A bath isn't something you do every day, or even every week. For most people, it happens once in a while. If you're lucky, maybe once a season. There's no running water, no taps, no hot shower waiting in another room. If you want a bath, you have to carry water. Buckets, from the well, or the river, or wherever water can be found. It takes time, effort, and fuel to heat it wood, which is precious. Then you pour it into a wooden tub, if you have one. Most people don't. If you're a peasant, you make do with a basin, or you don't bother at all. You might rinse your hands in cold water. You might wipe your face with a damp cloth. You might dust yourself with herbs or ashes. But washing, real washing, that's rare. Soap exists, kind of, but it's rough and expensive, and often saved for special days. So you smell like yourself, your skin, your sweat, your clothes, and your clothes. You haven't washed those either. They're wool, they're heavy, they take forever to dry, so they're worn again and again until the smell becomes a part of the fabric. Your neighbors smell the same, so you don't mention it. No one does, because this is normal. Still, you try not to breathe too deeply. The streets don't help. There are no drains, no sewer systems, not in your village, not in most towns either. Waste goes wherever it falls. Chamber pots are emptied out windows. Buckets are tipped into the street. Animal droppings, they're everywhere. Horses, cows, pigs. You step around it. Sometimes you don't see it in time. Rain doesn't clean things. It stirs them, makes puddles of filth, rivers of runoff that run between homes, into doorways, across bare feet in summer. It's worse. The sun bakes everything, heats the waste, lifts it into the air. Flies gather, so do rats, so do smells that turn your stomach. If you live in a city, it's more crowded, which means more people, which means more waste, more sweat, more rot. There's fish on sale, laid out in the open, scaling under the hot sun, cheese beginning to spoil, but still eaten, bread gone, moldy, still sold. The tannery smells of death. The butcher's stall smells of blood. The alley behind the tavern smells of ale. And something worse, people spit on the street. Dump slop, throw bones, and toilets. They don't exist. There are pits, holes, dug behind buildings. Some lined with stone, most not. Sometimes a plank, sometimes just open ground. Some castles have garderobes, little rooms that empty out into moats or ditches, but they still smell because waste doesn't vanish. It piles up, it seeps into the ground, it drifts into the air. Even the church smells candles, sweat, incense. covering the scent of unwashed bodies breast, shoulder to shoulder in the winter. Things don't improve. The cold slows decay, but it also traps smells inside. You close windows, shut doors, and breathe the same sour air for weeks. People try to manage, they carry pomander's small balls filled with herbs, or they hang dried flowers, lavender, rosemary, if they can afford it. In times of plague, doctors wear beaked masks stuffed with spices and vinegar-soaked rags. But nothing stops the smell. Not really your nose burns, your eyes water, you breathe through your mouth. But it doesn't help, because the taste is there too, in the back of your throat, in every breath. Sometimes you dream of fresh air, of wind across a hill, of rain that smells only of rain. But mostly, you don't dream of that, because this is all you know. You grow used to it, not because it's easy, but because you have to. You stop noticing the stink of your neighbor, because he smells like you, like work, like soil, like sweat, dried 3 times over. You forget what clean means until someone dies, and you smell that, and you remember. It can always get worse. The stink of the Middle Ages is not just unpleasant, it is everywhere. It is the air itself. It is the walls, the clothes, the ground. It is a part of life, not a sign that something is wrong, just another thing you live with, like hunger and cold and silence. You don't complain. You don't expect anything better, because there is no better. Not here, not now. You take another step down the muddy path. Avoid the puddle. Step over the pile, tighten your cloak against the wind, and keep walking, because the day's work still waits, and the air will not clear. You keep walking past the filth, past the muddy path, past the smell that clings to your skin and your clothes and your thoughts. Your feet hurt, they always do, because you don't have proper shoes, or maybe you don't have any at all. Just scraps of leather, tied with rope, thin, stiff, cracked from rain and time. You feel every stone, every thorn, every patch of frozen ground. You're a peasant, and this is your life. It's not just hard, it's constant. It never lets up. There's no vacation, no weekend, no early morning where you stretch, yawn, and decide to rest. Rest doesn't exist for people like you. Only tasks, endless, repeating tasks. You live on land that is not yours. It belongs to a lord. His manor rises far off in the hills, stone, tall, strong. You've never been inside, but you never been inside, but you know it's warmer, drier, cleaner, He doesn't plow the fields. He doesn't carry wood. He doesn't pull weeds or mend fences or shovel dung. You do you, and everyone you know. You work his land. You plant his crops. You give him your time, your labor, a part of everything you grow. That's the rent, the duty. The law, it's not a choice, even if your own family goes hungry. You must give your share to him first, and to the church second. What's left, if there is anything, you keep. Sometimes that's enough, sometimes it isn't. You rise before the sun, before the birds, before your body is ready. Your hands are raw from work, from tools carved long ago and used by too many people before you. Wooden handles, cracked and splintered, iron blades, rusted and dull. You pull weeds, you turn soil, you dig ditches, you lead oxen, you lift stones, you gather straw, you thatch roofs, and when the field sleeps for the season, you don't. There's wood to chop, clothing to patch, nets to mend, paths to clear, sick animals to tend in spring. your fingers crack from the cold. In summer, your skin burns in the sun. In autumn, your back aches from the harvest. In winter, you shiver by the fire. If you have one, your house is small. One room, maybe two, made of wattle and daub, twigs, mud, straw, hope. The walls bend in the wind. The roof leaks when it rains. Inside is dark, always dark. Windows are tiny, just holes, sometimes covered with cloth. There's no chimney. Smoke from the fire collects above your head. You cough. Everyone coughs. You sleep close to your family, sometimes in one bed, sometimes on sacks, sometimes on dirt. The animals sleep nearby. Chickens. Goats. Maybe. A pig. You need them warm. You need them alive. You cook over a flame in the center of the floor. A pot hangs above the fire. It's always the same pot. Soup. Stew. Boiled grains. It's not bad, but it's not good either. It fills your stomach. That's all that matters. You don't waste anything. You save scraps, bones, fat, peels. You wear what you have. One tunic, maybe two. Wool, rough and scratchy. You don't wash it often. There's no time, no soap, no basin deep enough when it's cold. You wear more, layer on layer, whatever you can find. You tie rope around your waist, wrap rags around your feet, hope they hold until spring. Most days you don't look in a mirror. If you even have one, you know what you look like. Tired, tin, weathered. But you're not alone. Everyone around you looks the same. Old faces on young bodies, wrinkles formed by wind and worry, hands shaped by labor, eyes dimmed by smoke and strain. And yet you keep going, because you have to, because someone depends on you. A child, a parent, a neighbor who can't lift the tools anymore. You help each other, because that's what keeps people alive. When a roof falls in, you fix it together. When a fence breaks, someone brings a hammer. When there's a little extra soup, you pass the bowl. You pray, not because it makes things easier, but because it makes things bearable. The church is cold, but it's the one stone building in your village, and it promises heaven, which feels like the only relief you'll ever know. You know the saints by name. You know the feast days by heart, not just for the faith but because those are the only days you might not work. You mark your year not by months, but by moments of labor. The planting, the weeding, the harvest, the frost. If it rains too much, you worry. If it doesn't rain at all, you worry more, because your survival depends on things you cannot control. Your belly shrinks in winter, your hands freeze, your firewood runs low. And when someone dies, there's no graveyard with flowers, just a simple cross, a few words, and then more work. You mourn while working, because the fields don't pause for grief, and still, you find moments, a joke, a shared apple, the sound of a flute, a song around the fire, a baby's laugh, the warmth of bread, fresh and rare. They don't last long, but they remind you that you are still here, still working, still waking, still waking, still surviving. This is life for a peasant, not a character in a fairy tale, not a figure in a history book, just a personen, a small village-ender, a leaky roof with rough hands and a heart that beats for one more day. You wake up sore, but that's nothing new. Your back has hurt for years. Your knees creak. Your hands close slower than they used to. But the sun is up, and that means it's time to work. There's no choice. Work is not something you plan around here. It isn't optional. It isn't careful. It's daily, endless, and often dangerous. There are no rules to protect you, no inspections, no signs that say warning, sharp blade, no gloves, no helmets, no first aid, kits tucked neatly in the corner. You use what you have, and what you have is old, heavy, worn dot, passed down from hands that also bled and broke. Today, you're in the field. The plow is stuck. You push it hard. The oxen grunt. The handle splinters in your palm, but you keep pushing. If the blade slips, it'll cut you. If the oxen jerk the wrong way, everyone's too busy. You keep going. Because crops don't care about pain if you're not in the field. You might be with the animals, feeding them, cleaning them, slaughtering them. A pig. You wield a knife, not a clean one, not a sharp one. If it slips, and it often does, you get cut. If the wound gets dirty, and it always does, you get sick. There's no antiseptic, no soap, no clean cloth, just dirty hands, a rag, and a prayer. In the forge, it's worse. If you're a blacksmith, you live in fire. You swing hammers heavier than your own arm. You grip glowing iron with tongs and shape it while it hisses and spits. One slip, 1 second of distraction, and your hand is burned. Your face is scarred. Your eyes sting from the smoke. There's no protection. You work in wool and sweat. No goggles, no boots, no earplugs, only instinct. The burns don't always heal clean. Sometimes they blister. Sometimes they rot. Sometimes they never close. And still, you go back the next day because horses need shoes, and lords need swords, and doors need hinges. If you cook, your danger isn't less. You work beside fire, open and wild. In the corner of a small, smoky room, the pot is always boiling. The coals are always hot. One wrong move, one spill, and skin is gone. There are no oven mitts, no fans, no recipes. You guess, you taste, you stir. You burn yourself often, and sometimes food burns too. If you're a servant, you get yelled at, maybe worse. If you're a mother, you just eat the burned parts and feed the rest to your children. Children don't escape the work, not here. They don't play all day. They don't go to school, unless they're very lucky. They carry water, chop wood, feed chickens, gather herbs, help make bread, fetch things, lift things. Their hands are small, but they learn quickly, because they must. And sometimes they get hurt. A fall from a ladder, a kick from a horse, a knife too sharp, a pan too hot. There's no one to stop them, no one to say, that's not safe. No warnings, just work. Even building is dangerous. You lift stones, sometimes twice your weight. You climb scaffold steed with ropes that fray. You swing axes, cut wood, nail beams, and if something falls, it lands on you. There's no one to blame, no one to sue, no one to pay for your injury. You lie on the ground, in pain, and if you can't get up, you're forgotten, because the work goes on. Digging is no better. Graves, ditches, wells, foundations. You dig deep. The earth is heavy. The walls collapse if you're not careful. But you don't have time to be careful. If the soil buries your legs, you scream. If it buries your chest, you suffocate. No ladder, no rescue rope, just a shovel and hope. Even simple tasks like washing clothes carry risk. You kneel at the river in cold water with numb fingers. You scrub, you lift, you haul wet fabric that pulls at your back in winter. You risk frostbite. In summer, you risk slipping on moss-covered rocks. And if the river floods, you run, or you drown. If you carry goods to market, You walk miles over uneven ground, through rain, wind, snow. You carry baskets, pushed carts, balanced barrels. The weight bruises your shoulders, bends your spine, wears down your body year after year. And if you fall, no one stops. They step around you or over you because everyone's carrying something heavy. Accidents happen all the time, but they aren't called accidents. They're just life. Someone drops a scythe, it cuts a foot. Someone trips with an axe, it cuts a hand. A roof beam slips, a child dies. No one's surprised, no one writes it down. You don't get time off, you don't get compensation, you get silence. And then, more work. Some people live with their injuries, missing fingers, a limp, a cloudy eye, a bent spine. Some don't live long at all, and no one talks about safety because no one expects it. You're expected to be careful, strong, fast, obedient, and if something happens you were careless, you were weak, you were unlucky, you lie in bed or in the dirt, and someone else takes your place because the job must go on, and you are replaceable. That's the truth of it. In this time, in this place, every job is dangerous, and every person knows it. Even the children, especially the children. You hear the sound long before you see them. Boots, hundreds of them, heavy, thick, stomping through the mud, marching down the path outside your village. Metal clinks with every step, dash swords, helmets, shields, banners snapping in the wind. Another army. No one tells you why they're here. No, one has to. You already know. There's a war. There's always a war. It might be between two kings, or two lords, or two brothers fighting over land. Neither of them will ever plow. It might be because someone insulted someone else, or because someone wants more gold, or because the church says God demands it, but you don't care. Why? You just hope your home is still standing when the soldiers leave. War in the Middle Ages is not like the stories. There's no shining armor that glitters in the sunlight, no noble speeches, no fair fights. Between equals on a peaceful hill, there's mud and blood and screaming. There are swords that do not gleam, they rust. There are horses that trample whoever's in their way, and fire that burns the innocent along with the enemy. Your village has no walls, no guards, no army, just farmers, mothers, children. The soldiers don't care. They take what they want. They want your grain. They take it. They want your pig. They drag it away. They want your daughter. You look away, because if you don't turn dead, they say war is about glory, honor, courage. But what you see's terror. Soldiers who haven't eaten in days. Men who sleep in the mud, then wake up to burn down homes. Boys younger than your oldest son, holding knives with shaking hands. And the fighting, it doesn't end on the battlefield. It spills everywhere. Armies don't stay in one place. They move through villages, through farms, through homes. They leave trails. Crops crushed underfoot, livestock missing, walls torn down for firewood. Bodies, always bodies. And when they're gone, another army comes. Sometimes the enemy, sometimes not. You can't tell the difference. They all wear armor. They all carry swords. They all speak with orders in their mouths and violence in their hands. You think of knights, brave men on horseback, holy, chivalrous, defenders of the weak. But those men are few and far, and not here. Here, war is a game played by the powerful, and you are just a piece on the board, a piece that can be stepped on. broken, forgotten. Sometimes war comes because of land, too. Lords argue over a border that no peasant can even see. One sends soldiers, the other responds. Swords flash, fields burn, houses fall, the peasants flee, or they don't. Sometimes war comes in the name of religion, a crusade, they call it. The Pope declares it holy, and suddenly thousands march across continents. Men who've never left their villages, who don't know where Jerusalem is, who've never seen the sea, but they carry swords and crosses and rage. They say they're doing God's work, but their path leaves ashes, massacres, looted cities, women crying in languages no one bothers to understand. You hear stories of towns wiped out, of people burned alive, of children enslaved, all in the name of faith. You wonder how God can listen to these prayers, how holy men can bless such ruin. But no one asks questions, because questions can be dangerous too, and the fighting isn't always far away. Sometimes it's in your neighbor's fields. Sometimes it's on your doorstep. Even castles fall, great stone walls crumbling under siege engines, arrows rain from the sky, boiling oil poured from towers, men digging tunnels beneath gates, fire set to beams, smoke thick enough to choke a man in seconds. And when a castle falls, there is no mercy. The winning side pillages everything, even after victory. The killing doesn't stop. It gets worse, because now it's revenge. And once again, you're caught in the middle. There are no treaties for people like you. No promises, no safety. You bury what you can. Food, tools, maybe a little coin. You hide in the woods, or behind a barn, or under a floor. But soldiers know where to look. If they find you, you give them what you have, or they take it, and sometimes they take you, too. Press you into service, hand you a weapon, send you into battle. You, never trained, never held a real sword. But none of that matters. You walk beside men you don't know, toward people you've never met for reasons you don't understand, and you hope not to win, but to survive. The battle begins. It's not like the stories. It's panic and mud and pain. You hear screaming. You don't know whose voice it is. You swing wildly, then you fall. Maybe from a blow, maybe from fear. You crawl away. Or you don't. No one counts the dead when it ends. Those who remain gather what they can, from bodies, from villages, from burned out homes. They drink, laugh, boast about how many they killed. You don't speak, you just go home. If you still have one war in the Middle Ages has no clean end. When the fighting stops, famine follows. Fields go, unpelled rain never falls the right way. Children beg, women starve, the bodies rot, but the grief stays. Sometimes war is declared, sometimes it just arrives, and no matter who wins, you lose something. A brother, a daughter, a neighbor, a piece of yourself. You want peace, but peace doesn't stay long. Not here, not now. You hear the boots again, closer this time. Different banners, different colors, same fear. You stand still. You don't look them in the eye. You let them pass, and you pray they don't look back. You're tired. Your body aches, but somehow you're still awake. The sun has finally gone down. The day's labor is done for now. You're sitting by the fire. Its light flickers against the wooden walls of your small home. You hear breathing. Someone nearby has already fallen asleep. Someone else pokes at the coals with a stick. You stare into the flames. You want to relax. You want to feel something other than sore, cold, or hungry. You want to forget, but how? There's no screen to scroll. No light-up rectangles in your hand. No texts to send. No shows to binge. No movies. No headphones. No music that comes from nowhere. You have nothing but your mind and the people around you. So you talk. If anyone has the energy, you tell a story. Maybe one you've heard a dozen times. A tale of an old knight, a brave woman, a ghost in the woods. Everyone listens, because there's nothing else to listen to. Sometimes someone sings a simple song. The words are old. No one knows who made them, but everyone knows the tune. You hum along, because it feels warm, because it fills the silence. Sometimes someone claps, taps their foot, slaps their hands on their knees in rhythm, a tiny beat in the dark. There are games, but they're not the kind you know. No controllers, no batteries, no graphics. Just bones, wooden dice, stones marked with chalk. You might play a game like knucklebones, tossing bits of sheep bones onto the dirt, trying to catch them, score points, pass time. There's no leaderboard, no glowing level dash up, just a laugh, maybe a small cheer, a moment of distraction before sleep. If it's a feast, Dave, you're lucky. There might be music, a traveling bard, a man with a fiddle, a woman with a harp. They play for coins, or food, or a place to sleep. You gather in the square, you listen, you dance, even if you don't know the steps. You stomp your feet, you spin, you laugh for a little while. You forget that the ground is coldened, the world is hard. There are no books not for you. They exist, but they are rare, precious, handwritten by monks. Locked in churches or castles. You've never touched one, maybe. You've never seen one. You don't read. Not because you're lazy, but because no one taught you. And there's nothing to read anyway. If you want a story, you need a person, a voice. Someone who remembers how it goes. And sometimes they get it wrong, or change it, or forget a part. That's how stories work here. They shift, they move, they belong to every Onient. No one. There's no theater, not really, not unless players come to town. They wear masks, paint their faces, act out tales of kings, of devils, of lovers lost. You stand in the mud and watch. You laugh, you cheer, you shout out, and then they pack up their cart, and they're gone. The fun goes with them. Most of the time, your fun is your work, or at least tied to it. You carve wood in your spare time, not because you're an artist, but because you need a spoon, or a bowl, or a toy for your child. You sew patterns into cloth, not because you're bored, but because winter is coming, and every layer helps. You walk to the well with a friend. You gather firewood with your sister. You milk the cow while humming a song. That's your free time. That's your break, if you're young. You chase chickens. You kick stones. You play tag around fences. If you're older, you listen. You fix things. You sit with the baby so your mother can sleep. There's no library, no wi-fi, no light switch to flick on when you feel restless at night. There's only the fire and the dark and your thoughts. Some nights, the sky is clear. You go outside. You stare up. You see stars more than you've ever seen in your life. They don't blink. They don't buzz. They don't change. They just are. And maybe you feel small, or maybe you feel calm, because there's no rush, no beeping, no screen telling you who's online, who's liked your post, who's waiting for a reply. There's no such thing as going viral. There's no filter to hide your face. There's no playlist to shuffle. If you're sad, you carry it. If you're bored, you wait it out. No notifications, just silence. And maybe a cricket, or a night bird, or the wind in the trees. Sometimes boredom is dangerous, because it makes you think. It makes you wonder, is this all there is? Will tomorrow be the same? Will I ever see anything beyond the edge of the woods? You push the thoughts away, because there's work tomorrow, and no one likes a dreamer. People here don't talk about fun, not the way you're used to. They talk about survival, about harvest, about saints, days about weather. Fun is not the goal. It's an accident, a gift, a moment, a story that makes someone laugh, a meal that tastes a little better than usual, a song sung just right, a dance that makes your heart race, and then it's gone. Back to chores, back to duty, back to silence. You don't miss your phone because you've never had one. But something inside you still wants more. A bigger world, a brighter one. You feel it sometimes, in stories, in music, in the wind. But here, in this place, in this time, fun is rare. And if you want it to make it with your hands, with your voice, with the people around you, or not at all. You've seen castles before, in stories, in movies, on screens where the stone walls shining, the towers glow in sunlight. You picture torches flickering, banquets roaring, warm rooms draped in velvet and gold. But that's not what a real castle feels like. Not now, not here, not in the Middle Ages. You step inside, and the first thing you notice is the cold. It lives in the walls, not a passing, chill, a deep, settled cold that never really leaves. The stone is thick, strong, built to withstand attack, but it doesn't keep warmth. It swallows it. There's no central heat, no warm air blowing gently through vents, just a fire if you're lucky. A large hearth in the main hall, smoke curling up toward the rafters. But most rooms don't have a hearth. Most rooms are left to the cold. You wear layers, fur, if you can afford it. Wool, leather, you wrap a cloak around your shoulder. Sand. Still feel the bite of winter creeping through cracks in the stone. The windows don't help. They don't have glass. Just narrow slits for arrows, for air, for light, but never enough. Some are covered with cloth or wooden shutters, but they rattle in the wind. They let in the damp, and when rain hits the walls, it seeps through. The floors are stone, or maybe packed earth, hard, cold. You walk carefully. Your steps echo. Every movement carries through the high ceilings, down the corridors, into the empty spaces where sound has no place to land. You expect luxury, but most of the rooms are bare. A table, a bench, a bed with a mattress stuffed with straw, a few tapestries hanging crookedly on the walls, trying to stop the draft. They don't. You sit on a wooden stool. It wobbles. You rest your feet on the floor and feel the chill crawl up your legs. There are no lights. Not really. Candles are expensive. So are oil lamps. Most rooms are lit by firelighter. Not at all at night. The castle becomes a shadow. You carry a torch, a lantern if you need to move through it. But mostly, you stay still and hope nothing moves around you. Because even in the castle, you are not alone. The rats are everywhere, in the corners, in the kitchens, in the walls. You hear them at night, scratching, scurrying, sometimes squealing. Bugs crawl through the straw in your bedding. Lice cling to your clothes. Fleas jump from dog to servant to noble. Even the king scratches his skynet, wonders why he still itches. No one is clean, not really, and no one is safe. The cold makes you sick. The damp settles in your bones. Your breath fogs the air inside your room. You wrap a blanket tighter. You drink warm wine. You sleep with socks on, a cap on your head, and still wake up shivering. The bathrooms are nothing like you imagine. There is no tiled chamber with hot water flowing from pipes. There's a chamber pot, a bucket, a hole in the floor that leads to the outside ear, into a moat. The smell lingers in the hallways, in the stairwells, even in the great hall, where meals are served. And speaking of meals, they're not always warm, not always fresh, even in a castle. Food depends on what's available, what's in season, what's been preserved with salt or smoke. You eat by firelight, on wooden plates, with a knife, maybe a spoon. You drink from a shared cup. You eat meanwhile. Your hands are still cold from the air. You chew bread that's gone hard. You wipe your mouth on your sleeve. You imagine the castle as a place of joy, but often it's quiet, silent even, especially in the winter. The snow piles outside. The fire burns low. You wait for spring like everyone else. Even the lords and ladies wear thick clothes inside. Even the children complain off cold feet and sore throats when someone falls, ill a cough, a fever, a wound gone bad. There's no comfort here, no medicine, no clean linens, just herbs, prayers, and a hard bed. You might have your own room, but it's not private, not really. Servants come and go. Couriers knock at all hours. Guards stand by the doors. And if you're not important, you sleep in the hall, on straw, near the fire, beside others who snore, toss, and sometimes don't wake up at all. There are no soft beds waiting, no hot baths. At the end of the day, no peace. Even safety is an illusion. The castle is built to keep enemies out, but that doesn't mean you're secure. Rebellion brews inside walls. Poison is poured into wine. Daggers are hidden in sleeves. You watch your back, even here, because power is a dangerous thing, and stone walls can only do so much. You can't leave when you want. The roads are frozen. The bridges are flooded. The forests are full of thieves. You stay inside with the cold, with the smoke, with the rats, and the whispersand, the bitter wind that never fully stops. You begin to wonder, is the castle really better than the village? You have walls here, you have servants, you have a bed, but you don't have warmth, or comfort, or quiet. Just echoes, and stone, and silence. The kind that settles into your bone sand, makes itself at home. You're a child, but that doesn't mean you get to play, or rest, or learn. Not here, not in the Middle Ages. You wake up early, before the light fills the sky. Your hands are already dirty from yesterday. Your back already aches from lifting buckets. And today will be the same. More work, no school, no books, no lessons. Because for most kids like you, school doesn't exist, not really. There's no classroom at the edge of the village, no teacher waiting with a smile and a stack of paper, no desk with your name carved in the wood. There's just a field, a barn, a fire that needs more wood, a younger sibling who needs watching. You've never seen a chalkboard. You've never touched a pencil. You don't even know what a pencil is. You might know a few letters if someone bothered to show you. Maybe a priest, maybe an older brother who once worked in a monastery. But reading, writing, that's not for you. That's for the sons of lords. or the boys sent to church, not for peasants, not for girls, not for children who spend their days gathering eggs or weaving baskets or carrying jugs of water from the river. Your parents never learned to read. Your grandparents didn't either. It's not shameful, it's normal, because real knowledge is a luxury, and luxuries don't belong here. If you live in a big town, there might be a school near the church. Small, simple, just a few benches, a cold room with narrow windows, and one man standing at the front with a stick. He teaches Latin, prayers, basic numbers. He teaches by speaking. You repeat. He listens. You write. If you can afford a slate or wax tablet. If you make a mistake, he hits your hand, or your back, or your head. Learning is not kind. It is strict, rigid, expected, to be remembered the first time. There are no school bells, no recess, no snacks. There is no warmth either, no ink for everyone, no books to take home. Most students don't make it far. They drop out, or leave, or are never allowed in to begin with. If you're a girl, you almost never get the chance. Some rich girls are taught at home. They learn to read prayers, or keep house, or manage servants. But even then, reading is not for enjoyment. It's for duty, for reputation, for keeping up appearances. Because books are not toys. They are rare, expensive, each one copied by hand, page by page, ink on parchment, lines of neat letters written by candlelight in silent rooms. A single book can take months to finish, maybe longer. Only monasteries and wealthy nobles have collections, and even then, maybe just a few volumes. There is no library, no bookstore, no shelf of colorful covers waiting to be picked. You don't read for fun. You don't read to escape. You read only if someone decides you're worth teaching. And for most people, that decision never comes. You learn other things. How to carry water without spilling it. How to gut a fish. How to mend a shirt. How to light a fire with damp wood. How to keep the bread from burning. How to tell when the sky means rain. These are lessons too, passed from hands to hands, voices to ears, not written down, just remembered. You don't get grades, you don't get awards, you get experience. And if you forget, you make a mistake. And sometimes mistakes cost more than just time. They cost food, or warmth, or safety, and you don't get a second chance. Sometimes you hear stories from travelers of great scholars, men who studied faraway texts, who debated in universities, who read in Greek and wrote in Latin. You can't imagine that life. It sounds like magic, like something made up, but it's real, just not real for you. That world is walled off, kept behind stone and gold and power. You know your place, and it's not behind a desk. It's in a field, in a kitchen, at the edge of a cold room, kneeling beside a spinning wheel, wondering what it would be like to open a book and understand every word. You ask questions sometimes. Why is the sky blue? Why do some people read and others never learn? The answers are vague, because that's just the way things are. Because God made it so. Because people like us don't need to know. And maybe you stop asking, or maybe you keep wondering. Quietly, years pass. You grow older. You still don't read. You sign your name with an X if you're allowed to sign at all. You count with your fingers. You remember prayers only because you've said them 100 times. You listen to others read laws and tell you what they mean, and you believe them. Because you must, because you have no way to check. But still, you know things. Important things. You know the shape of your land. You know the weight of your work. You know how long it takes to grind grain, how to dress a wound, how to keep a baby quiet through the night. And no one writes those things down. They live in your body, in your voice, in your memory. So when someone says you're uneducated, you don't argue, but you know the truth. You just weren't given the pages. You still learned the world anyway. You wake up in the dark again. Your body is too hot. Your mouth is dry. Your skin is cold and damp at the same time. Something is wrong. You know it. So does everyone else. There's no thermometer to check your temperature. No pill to bring it down. No soft voice telling you to stay in bed and rest. There's just the sickness and the fear that comes with it. You try to sit up, but your limbs are weak. Your head spins. You see shadows where there shouldn't be any. You lie back down. There's no blanket thick enough to stop the shivering. Your family looks at you, worried. They whisper. They argue softly about what to do. There's no hospital to go, to no ambulance to call, no pharmacy on the corner. Just one word spoken with caution. The doctor, if there is one nearby, he may come, but he won't look like the ones you're used to. He wears robes, a strange hat, carries a pouch filled with tools that don't make sense. He smells like vinegar and smoke, and he speaks like someone who knows everything if he doesn't. He asks questions, but not about germs, not about viruses. He doesn't know those exist. He looks at your tongue, feels your forehead maybe, sniffs your breath. Then he nods slowly. He says your humors are out of balance. You have too much heat, or too much moisture, or not enough bile, or too much of the wrong kind. That's what they believe here, that the human body is ruled by 4 humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, yellow bile. To be healthy, they say, these must stay in balance. If you're sick, they believe something inside you has gone too far, so they try to pull it back. And the ways they try, they're nothing like what you'd expect. First, they might bleed you. Take a knife, a sharp tool, make a small cut on your armor, neck or foot. Let the blood drip into a bowl. They watch it carefully, the color, the thickness. They judge your health by what drains out. Or they bring leeches, yes, leeches. Small, slippery creatures. They place them on your skin. You feel them bite, latch on drink, and you lie still, because you're told it will help, even when it doesn't, even when it makes you weaker. If that doesn't work, they try purging, a thick drink of something bitter, oily, boiled herbs, powders from dried plants, maybe even crushed beetles. You swallow, gag, cough, then you vomit, or worse, and they nod like it's a good sign. You don't feel better, but they say it means the illness is leaving your body. Sometimes they place strange things on you. A frog cut open and tied to your foot. A bag of herbs under your pillow. A charm carved with symbols pressed against your chest. You don't know what they mean. They don't either, but they've heard stories, so they try. If someone dies from the same illness, you may be told it was a curse, a punishment from God, or a spell cast by someone jealous, so they call a priest. He comes with incense. He prays over you, sprinkles holy water if you scream in your sleep. They think it's the devil. They bind your hands, hold you down, whisper prayers through trembling lips. Sometimes they burn herbs to cleanse the air, because they believe bad smells cause illness, miasma. They call it air that carries death. They hang flowers by the door, spray vinegar on cloth, rub garlic on walls, but the sickness stays. You hear of someone being buried in a pit, not because they died, but because someone thought they had brought the sickness. Fear spreads faster than the illness, and still the pain doesn't stop. You beg for water, there's none nearby, or if there is, it isn't clean. You drink it anyway, you have to, and maybe it makes you worse. Your skin breaks out, blisters, sores. They say it's your blood boiling to the surface. They press cold rags on it. Sometimes they cut them open, let the evil out. The doctor leaves. He says, you'll recover. You won't. There's nothing else he can do. Your family tries their own remedies, old recipes, passed down in whispers. Honey in water, a tea made of nettle, a poultice of crushed leaves. You sip it, you sleep, and for a moment you think you might get better, but sometimes you don't. You don't understand why. No one does. They say it was your time, or they blame the stars, or a neighbor's envy, or the sin in your soul. There's no science here, just guesses, tradition, hope, fear, even. Childbirth is dangerous. You hear the screams from across the village. The midwife runs back and forth. There's no anesthesia, no sterile tools, no way to help if things go wrong, and they often do for women. Surviving childbirth is never guaranteed. For babies, the odds aren't much better. You hold your breathers, you listen through the wall, waiting to hear the cry, or the silence, and you think this is what healing looks like here. A coin given to a man with leeches, a plant boiled in a pot, a charm whispered in the dark. You want to believe in it, because there's nothing else, but deep down, you know you're not getting better because of the cure. You're getting better in spite of it, if you're lucky. Your body heals itself. If you're unlucky, you fade slowly while others guess. Medicine here is not comfort, it's not safety, it's not knowledge, it's desperation, dressed in robes, carrying a knife. It starts with a cough, just a quiet one, in the corner of the room. A neighbor, a cousin, someone you saw at the well the day before. They say they feel cold, even though the air is warm. They say their id aches, their stomach turns. They need to lie down. You bring them water, say a prayer, go home, and the next morning they are gone. Not just sick, gone. You don't understand. You aren't supposed to. No, one is. Because the sickness that has come is not just another fever. It is not a bad cold. It is not something you can sleep off or sweat out. It is something else entirely, a plague. They will call it many things, the great pestilence, the great mortality, but one name will stay. Even centuries later, the Black Death. You hear whispers first. Someone in a town far away is dying, then whole families, then whole streets. You hear the rumors that it came from the east, from ships, from rats, from air, from God. You don't know what to believe, but you know what you see. You see people falling where they stand. You see children burning with fever. You see skin turn dark, black, barple, covered in boils, the size of eggs. They swell under the arms, between the legs. They burst, they bleed. You hear screaming, then silence. It spreads faster than anything you've ever known, from house to house, from village to village. It rides the roads like a storm that doesn't need clouds. You can't hide from it. You can't fight it. You can only wait and pray. But even the prayers feel small. The churches fill with bodies. The priests stop coming. Some are dead, some are too afraid. They say it's a punishment for greed, for lust, for pride. They say the world is ending, and it feels like they might be right. You dig graves at first, one at a time, then two, then five, then 10, until there is no room, until the graveyard overflows. You bury people in mass pits, layer after layer, so many bodies that the earth groans beneath them. You wrap them in cloth if you can, but after a while, there is no time. You cover your face with rags soaked in vinegar, with herbs, with desperation. You light fires in the street, hang flowers from the windows, burn spices, anything to fight the smell, because the smell, it never leaves. It's in the air, in the walls, in your hair, on your hands. You wash them again and again, but it stays. Sometimes you think you can taste it, and you wonder, am I already sick? You watch friends fade, mothers, fathers, neighbors, gone. In a day, sometimes less. You see houses boarded shut, entire families inside. No one goes in, no one comes out. You hear the crying through the door, then nothing. You hear of towns closing their gates, no one allowed in or out, and still it spreads. Even the rich cannot hide, even the lords, the knights, the scholars, they bleed too. They rot like everyone else. The doctors wear strange masks, long, beaked faces stuffed with herbs. They carry sticks to touch the sick from a distance, but even they die. There is no cure, no protection, no escape. Some people try to flee. They run to the countryside. They hide in the hills, and the plague finds them. Some people blame others, foreigners, outsiders, Jews. They say it's poison, that the wells were tainted. They burn villages, kill innocents, looking for someone to blame. But the plague keeps spreading. Some people stop caring. They drink, they dance, they steal. They say, if death is coming, let it come with a full belly and a song. Some try harder to be holy. They beat themselves in the streets, walk barefoot through towns, wearing robes, soaked with their own blood, begging God for forgiveness. You just stay quiet. You keep your head down. You feed the animals. You boil water. You hope somehow you survive. But the world you knew is gone. You walk through a village once full of life, now empty. Silent doors swinging in the wind. Fields overgrown. Shops abandoned. You count the people left. There are fewer than you can remember. The children are gone. The elders, the strong men, the young women. You're still here, but nothing feels the same. You can't celebrate, not really, because you didn't win. You just weren't taken, and that thought never really leaves you. The plague comes back again, not just once, but many times. Not always as strong, not always as fast, but it never truly disappears. And every time a cough echoes too loud, you feel it again, that fear, because now you know how fragile life is, how fast it can slip away. You used to think death waited until old age, but now you know it can knock on any door, any day, without reason, and there is no answer to stop it. Not here, not in this time. The Black Death changed everything, but not by design, not by progress, only by pain. And you learned to live beside it, with it, inside its shadow, because that's what survival looks like in the Middle Ages. Not triumph, just enduring. You hear the word night, and your mind fills with shining armor, white horses, golden swords, flags waving in the wind, trumpets, crowds, glory, you think of honor, Of chivalry, of brave men riding into battle for king and country, for justice, for love. But that's not the whole story, not even close, because being a knight in the Middle Ages was not easy, it was not clean, it was not safe, and it certainly wasn't always noble. It started early. You didn't just become a knight, you were born into it, into the right family, with the right name, the right blood. You were sent away as a child, at 7 years old, maybe younger, not to school but to another lord's household. There you were a page, a servant. You cleaned armor, ran errands, helped in the kitchens. You watched, you listened, you learned, you practiced manners, but also how to carry a sword, how to saddle a horse, how to pour wine without spilling. You were being shaped. At 14, if you were lucky, you became a squire. Then the real work began. You trained all day, sword drills, shield blocks, mounted, combat, jousting. You learned how to fall without breaking your bones. You served a knight directly, carried his gear, helped him into his armor along. Heavy processed take an hour or more. You watched him fight. Sometimes you fought beside him. And when the time came, if you survived, if you proved yourself, you were made a knight. It wasn't magic. It wasn't instant glory. It was another step on, a path of sweat and blood. And now the armor was yours. But it was not comfortable. It was not light. It was heavy, so heavy. A full suit of plate armor could weigh 45 to 60 pounds. Made of steel, piece by piece, strapped to your body, tight, hot, loud, every movement was slower, every breath harder, every ride more exhausting. You didn't just walk around in it, you trained in it, you fought in it, you bled in it, you needed strength to stay on your horse, even more to swing your sword again and againing the heat of battle. And that sword it wasn't light either. 3 to 5 pounds of sharpened steel, not for waving around, but for cutting, crushing, killing, because knights were warriors, and war was not clean. You went to battle when your lord called, when your king demanded. You didn't ask why, you obeyed. You rode into fields of mud, rain, pouring, wind howling, arrows flying. You saw the chaos, screaming men, crushed bodies, broken limbs. You didn't always feel brave. Sometimes you felt sick, but you kept going because fear wasn't allowed, and hesitation meant death. You fought other knights, just like you. Same armor, same training, same fear. You aimed for weak spots, the neck, the armpit, the gap behind the knee, and you knew they were aiming for yours. If you were unhorsed, you fell hard, metal slamming against dirt or stone, or someone else's body. You scrambled to your feet, if you could, and you fought on. You were taught to follow the code of chivalry, honor, loyalty, mercy, but war didn't always leave room for that sometimes. You burned villages because your lord told you to. Sometimes you killed peasants because they stood in the way. Sometimes you watched prisoners suffer because it was easier than stopping it. You were told to protect the weak, but the line between protector and destroyer blurred more than once, and it stayed with you. At night, you tried to sleep, in tents, in castles, on stone floors. You woke with aching joints, bruises from battle, cuts that festered. No doctor, no hospital, just a wound, a rag, a prayer. And you didn't always get better. You trained your whole life to fight, but it didn't guarantee survival. Sometimes, all it took was a bad fall, or a lucky arrow, or a sword you didn't see coming. And if you died, you were just one more night lost on the field. If you lived long enough to grow old, your hands stiffened, your shoulders tightened, your knees gave out, your sword grew heavy, your armor harder to wear, and you were replaced by someone younger, faster, stronger. All your victories, written down, maybe sung in song, perhaps, but often forgotten. You became a Namian, a list, a statue in a hall, a tale told by Firelito children who didn't know how hard it really was, because being a knight wasn't glory. Not really, it was training, duty, exhaustion, pain, battle, and more pain. It was giving your life to something bigger, and not always knowing if it mattered. You looked brave in paintings, in poems, but underneath the helmet, you were just a man, tired, sweating, bleeding, praying that today was not the day you'd fall. And if it was, you only hope Etsamine would remember your name. You hear a noise, outside, not loud, just strange, like something tapping the window or scratching the door. You freeze, because here, in this time, you don't ask, what was that? You don't go look, you don't brush it off, you pray, because anything unusual, anything unexplained, might not be just wind or rain. It might be something else, something darker. This is the Middle Ages, and people don't have science. They don't have explanations. They have stories and fear. You grow up hearing them, tales of curses, of witches, of spirits that wander the night, men who turn into wolves, women who steal the breath of babies, eyes that watch you from trees. You hear them so often, you stop asking if they're true. You just believe, because everyone else does. When something goes wrong, when the cow won't give milk, when the bread won't rise, when someone falls ill without reason, people start whispering. They look for someone to blame. They don't blame the weather, or bad luck, or germs they've never heard of. They blame people. The quiet woman who lives at the edge of the village, the old man with too many cats, the girl who speaks to herself, the midwife whose herbs seem to work too well. They say those people aren't just different, they're dangerous. They say they've seen them under the moon, talking to the wind, talking shadows, summoning sickness, and sometimes that's enough. A finger points, a rumor spreads, and someone is called a witch. There's no trial, not really. There are questions, but no good answers. There are tests, but none you can pass. They might throw you in water if you float. You're guilty. If you sink, you're innocent, but dead. They might look for marks, a freckle, a mole, a scar, any spot on your body that can be called the devil's mark. They prick your skin with needles. If you don't bleed, you're cursed. If you do bleed, doesn't matter. They've made up their minds, and then they punish. You might be beaten, bodished, burned, hanged, not because you did anything, but because you were there when something unexplainable happened. Because fear needs a target, and today it's you. Even if no one is accused, the fear stays. You carry charms, a bone, a cross, a stone with a hole in the center. You hang herbs above the door. You burn sage. You sprinkle salt. Not because you understand why, but because someone once said it helps, and you can't afford not to believe. You say prayers before walking into the woods. You never speak someone's name 3 times after dark. You knock on wood. You don't step on cracks. You don't cross black cats. It sounds like superstition, because it is. But here, superstition is a kind of safety. Even the church doesn't always help. Sometimes the priests say it's all nonsense. only God has power. They say don't only saints can protect, but other times they speak of devils, of possession, of demons hiding in plain sight. They tell you to confess too fast, to fear, and the fear grows. Lightning strikes a tree. God's warning. A child is born with a mark, a curse. A rooster crows at midnight, a sign of death. You try to stay safe. You follow the customs. You listen to the elders. You wear the right colors, say the right blessings. Leave bread on the windowsill. Whatever walks past in the night. You don't laugh at the stories, because stories are all you have. The world doesn't make sense. And in this time, so much doesn't make sense. People get sick for no reason. Crops fail. Babies die. Storms come out of nowhere. Dreams feel like warnings. Shadows seem to move on their own. You want answers, but there aren't any. So you believe you have to, because it's the only thing between you and the fear, even the wise. People, the healers, the herbalists, the ones who help when no one else can, they're not safe from suspicion. They might know which plant eases fever, which root calms the stomach, which leaf helps stop the bleeding. But if they help too many people, they become a threat. If they succeed where the priest has failed, they become a target. Too much knowledge looks like power, and power looks like danger. So they speak carefully. They hide their skills. They give you tea and call it a blessing. They light a candle and whisper a prayer, even when they know it's the herb that heals. Because in this world, even truth must wear a disguise. You walk through your village and see it everywhere, a horseshoe nailed to a door, an old doll buried beneath a tree, a child's shoes left in the chimney to keep away spirits. You see crosses carved into the barn. You see women spit over their shoulders. You see people turn their pockets inside. Confuse the devil. You see fear woven into daily life, as normal as bread, as familiar as the sky. But the sky changes. A red moon, an eclipse, a star that moves where it shouldn't. People gather, they murmur. They say the world is ending, or a new plague is coming, or the dead will rise. You don't argue, you just nod, because maybe they're right, maybe they're not, but you can't afford to risk it, so you do what you're told. You hang the herbs. You say the charm. You sleep with one eye open, and hope whatever's out there keeps walking past your door. You've made it through the day, a day that wasn't yours. Not really, but it could have been if you had been born in another time, another century, another world. You've walked through the cold dirt of a village road, felt the hunger growl in your stomach, worked in fields that stretched too wide, carried water, kneaded rough bread, wiped your brow as the sun sank behind smoke-colored rooftops. You've lived without warmth, without comfort, without safety. You've smelled the air thick with waste, heard the moans of the sick, watched as life passed by, slow and hard, like a wheel stuck in thick mud. You've seen what it means to survive when there is no backup, no help, no second chances. In the Middle Ages, every day was full of uncertainty, of aches, of repetition, of prayerand sometimes. Silence in place of answers. You didn't get to choose your path. Where you lived, who you worked for, what you believed, what you feared, it was chosen for you by birth, by blood, by season, by need. Your hands were never clean, your back never straight for long, your heart always listening for footsteps in the distance, for church bells, 4 coughs behind closed doors. Even joy was fleeting. A bit of music by firelight, a dance during a feast, a story told by someone who had traveled far, but those moments were rare, and you held on to them because you had to, because they lit the dark. For just long enough, keep walking through it. You lived with fear, not just of war, or plague, or punishment, but of things you couldn't explain, of shadows that moved when you weren't looking, of dreams that whispered, warnings, of people who vanished without reason. You learned not to question. You learned to obey, to bow, to keep your voice low, to hope you were never noticed by the wrong person on the wrong day. And even if you were noble a knight, a lady, a priest, the weight was still there. Your armor didn't protect you from age, or regret. Your robes didn't shield you from doubt, no matter your title. You lived in a world where control was an illusion, where peace was a moment between storms. You've walked those halls. You've touched the stone walls of castles. You've slept under straw that didn't keep out the cold. And now you return to your own bed, your own time, to warmth, to light, to silence that does not carry danger. You feel the softness beneath you, the weight of your blanket, the stillness of your room. There's no shouting from outside, no marching boots, no creaking gate, no smell of smoke in the wind. There's quiet, safe, simple quiet. You don't have to wake before the sun. You don't have to walk a mile for water. You don't have to squint at shadows wondering if they carry sickness. You can breathe deeply, and when you do, you don't smell Asher Rotor fear. You smell the night, clean, soft, safe. No one will come knocking. No one will take what's yours. You are not bound to land you didn't choose, or a master you didn't pick. You have your own time, your own space, your own voice. And as you lay there, your eyes slowly closing, you think of those who came before, the ones who walked when the road was harder, the ones who endured, and you whisper a quiet thank you, not just to them, but to the present, to now, to here, because for all its noise, all its motion, all its confusion, this world is gentler. It is softer, kinder, wider, brighter. You are here. You are warm. You are safe. And the Middle Ages, with its swords, its smoke, its silence can fade. Now fade, like candlelight in the morning sun. So close your eyes. Let go of the stone walls and muddy streets. Let the echo of hooves and iron grow quiet. Let the cold air become distant. Breathe and sleep. You've seen enough of that other world tonight. You rest in this one.